Welcome to the Diamond Select Toys panel. My name is Zach Oat. I am the marketing supervisor for Diamond Select, so I handle all the social media and general promotions and publicity for the toys. So if you're talking to somebody on Facebook or Twitter, it's probably me, or on Instagram if that happens, then that is me. So nice to meet you all. If I've talked to you before, welcome to the panel. With me today is Gene St. Jean, one of the sculptors behind many of our lines, one of the greatest sculptors in the industry today, in my personal opinion. And he's going to be participating in a Q&A after our slide presentation, where we're going to run down all the stuff we have upcoming that we are allowed to talk about. So if you have any questions, we can hold until after the presentation. Gene will be here to answer them, and possibly Eli Livingston as well. He should be coming by. He might show up a little bit late. Another talented sculptor of ours. I did hand out some tickets. I see a couple of new arrivals. I'll just give them some tickets and then we'll get started. So in this presentation, I'm going to show you some concept and control art for upcoming products. So I would appreciate it if you would not film the presentation itself. If you want to film me, I don't know why you would, but you're welcome to. If you want to film Gene, he's much more photogenic, you're welcome to do that as well. But if you could not film the art I'm going to be showing, because I believe most of it is approved, but most of it we'd like to keep for the people who came to the show and not necessarily put it out in the public right now. Okay? Okay. All right. So I'm going alphabetical here. So I'm going to start off with Batman. We have the license for resin busts and statues, vinyl bust banks, and also bottle openers. We're working on a lot of fun products. I know bottle openers isn't what leaps to mind when everybody thinks collectibles, but if anybody's seen any of our metal bottle openers, they're actually really kind of cool. So we have some cool concepts I'll show you. First up, Batman and Robin will be the first two in the line. Now these were sculpted by Gene here, designed by based on designs by Barry Bradfield. And you can see these are going to be the first two releases, and I'll show you a general lineup of what you can see down the road. We hope to extend this beyond the characters you see. We have the rights to a lot of the villains who appeared on the show, so expect to see some expected and unexpected villains in the line. And these will all be in the general price point and scale as what DC Direct is putting out now for their comic-based offering, so it should fit into your DC Comics collection pretty well. Our vinyl bust banks, lower price point, larger in size. There is actually a height chart there, so Batman's going to be up around 8 inches. Robin's a little bit shorter. I actually don't know if I have those. I think I do have those perfectly to scale, because they have a scale behind them. But those will be vinyl like our Universal Monsters and Star Wars banks, if you've seen those. We have some of those up in our store. You want to check them out, see what you can expect. And our bottle openers are solid metal, sculpted bottle openers. And they have magnets on the back, so you can put them on your refrigerator. And you can see here the Batarang and the Batman logo openers that we're working on. Still in progress, but we'll be able to reveal some product shots soon. Moving on to Dawn, we have a couple new Dawn products coming up. One is a reissue of our Dawn holiday ornament, based on design by Joseph Michael Linsner. This new color scheme that we've done for this particular edition was chosen by Linsner himself. And this should be out, I think, early next year. I don't know if it's going to be a Christmas item per se, but it will be out around the end of the year, early next year. And Sinful Susie is another Dawn character who we will be making in bust form. This was sculpted by Jerry Macaluso. Domo. We've had a lot of fun with the Domo products we've made so far. Our vinyl bank is up in the store, right? It was up in the store. I think we might have actually sold out already. It's a really cool looking piece. Next up is our Domo pizza cutter, where the blade is housed inside the body of Domo. It's actually a lot of fun. I think this is the first pizza cutter we've done. And I think it's automatically the greatest pizza cutter ever made. So I'm very excited about it. And we'll be making a silicone tray so you can have little tiny domos full of these. I believe, I'm not sure if both of these will be out by the end of the year, but if not, early next. They are in development. Ghostbusters. Apologize, I should have a big Ghostbusters logo there, but I think this is just as good. This is our light-up Ghostbusters firehouse statue. It's about 7 inches tall. The windows light up, and I believe also the sign. And this should be out by the end of the year. We've had some development trouble with it, but we finally got it on track, and I think it should be out before Christmas. Stay Puft Marshmallow Vinyl Bank. You may have seen our 11-inch version that we've been selling for a couple of years now. Well, this is the 24-inch version. You can see it on display at the booth. It's very big. It's pretty heavy. It's still vinyl, but it's a lot of vinyl, so it's a pretty hefty piece. There's a comparison there with an apple, but since apples can be different sizes, I'll show it next to a Mini-Mate. We're going to be putting out a new set of Ghostbusters Mini-Mates to go along with it, and you can see that it's very, very big. And this should be out early next year.
Aww.
Knight Rider. Our first Knight Rider car is out now, kit, and this is Super Pursuit Mode kit. It is not a transforming car. The parts are all permanently extended, just like they were, I believe, on the model on the show. And there will be exclusive sounds on the vehicle that reference Super Pursuit Mode, as well as the Super Pursuit Mode sound effects. And that should be out by the end of the year. Followed by Car early next year, which will have lines from the movie, from the TV show, as well as different sound effects. Lenore, we have a PVC figurine set coming out with her and 3 of her friends. I forget all their names. Mr. Gosh is one of them. And I'm blanking on the other 2 right now, but they're about, I think she's about 3 or 4 inches tall, so they're all about that scale. And that should be out again end of this year, early next. Lost in Space. I do not have anything to show you right now for the electronic B9 robot that we are developing, but we do have the prototype in-house, and we're tweaking a little bit to get it to where we're happy with it, and hopefully we'll be soliciting that to retailers soon for 2014 release. But we'll have lights and sound. Eli Livingston is here. Eli, feel free to join us. Hey, pour yourself a water. Eli Livingston is also one of our most talented and prolific sculptors. He does all of our Walking Dead banks, as well as some other stuff. So moving on. Marvel. This slide is out of order, but Marvel Select will be continuing this year. I'll just say right now we have re-offered this Black Widow that's previously a Disney Store exclusive and is now going to be offered to comic shops and retailers starting this Friday, this coming Friday. This is the first slide I wanted to start off with. This would have been much better. Thor will be the next one to come out. He should be out in advance or right around the release of Thor: The Dark World. And that's an actual close to final product sample. That's not a prototype. The figure that's in the display case now is a slightly earlier paint sample. You see some of the colors are off. He looks a little pale. His lips are a little dark. This is actually pretty close to final, and I think came out pretty good. Jane Foster will be the second figure we're releasing from the movie. Confusing choice to some, but I think once you see the movie, you'll see that she is the second biggest character in the film in terms of presence and plot relevance, and I think it's going to change a lot of people's minds when they see the film. Plus, we just had the opportunity to make a Natalie Portman action figure, so this is never going to come our way again. We're pretty sure. Each of them will come with half of this diorama base that you can see. If you put them together, you can form an element from the film. I believe that we're making the alien weapon, the Dark Elf weapon, removable, and I don't know if you can really tell there. It's not going to be a full head of the Dark Elf. It's going to be just a Dark Elf mask resting on the base, but it's still a pretty cool little diorama when you put it together. We will also be reissuing the Disney Store Classic Thor to comic shops and specialty retailers. I believe we're actually trying to get this out, if not later on this month, then early next month. So around the time of the movie, you will have the opportunity to pick up the classic comic-based store as well. After that, we'll be moving on to Silver Surfer. This is an early prototype shot, just one of the cleanest and nicest ones I have right now. I haven't had a chance to play around with the close to final product sample that we have up in the display case. But that one is getting pretty close to final. You can see what the paint on the Surfer is going to look like, see the final articulation, and you can see the translucent energy effect on the base, as well as the energy blasts that he comes with. He comes with 2 energy blasts for his hands. And he also comes with an infinity gauntlet that fits over one of his hands as well. And that's not an interchangeable hand. That actually fits over to the hand on his left hand. You can see that the energy base is translucent. And the board comes off the base, and you can stand next to the base with the board. He has a foot peg there. And that should be coming up before the end of the year. I'm very excited about this one. We'll also be reissuing the Marvel Select Hawkeye. I think that might be early next year that he'll be coming out. This was previously exclusive to the Disney Store, now at comic shops and specialty stores. Black Widow I mentioned before, but we'll also be reissuing the Disney Store Lizard to comic shops and specialty retailers. Again, probably spring of next year. The Infinity Gauntlet bottle opener, I believe, is the next bottle opener in our line of Marvel-based metal bottle openers. Here you can see a resin prototype, but you can see the chrome-like metal version here with the gems. I'm not sure if those gems are exactly fine with what they're going to look like on the actual piece, but I'm pretty sure that finish is accurate. And that is on display down at our booth right now. And it should be coming out, I think that one should be coming out before the end of the year. I think Venom might be early next year. This is, again, pretty close to final product sample. See, that's real metal there. And these both will have magnets on the back, but I didn't mention that for the refrigerator. And next is Deadpool. This is actually a resin prototype, or painted silver here, but this is what it's going to look like. I think the one in the display case might be closer to finished, but I'm not sure about that. And that should be early next year as well. Our silicone trays are continuing with Iron Man's helmet, which is next. We just put out Spider-Man's mask. So Iron Man's helmet, Thor's hammer, and Captain America's shield. You can't really make out the details in this terrible photograph I took of the product that we just saw for the first time in the display case upstairs, but the star and the concentric rings. The Munsters, Series 3 is out now in stores, the Hot Rod series, and that of course has the collect all four and build a staircase. And that is only available with the select figures, which are available through comic shops and specialty stores. Toys R Us has basic versions of Lily, Herman, and Grandpa, which do not have those pieces, and they do not have Uncle Gilbert, who is only available at comic shops and specialty stores. But the stairs open and close, and the flames come off of Spot's nostrils. And those are all sculpted by Gene St. Jean. Next up is the third and final version of our electronic 1/15th scale Munster coach. This is a glow-in-the-dark version. It still has all the electronic sounds, engine noises, rumbling, backfire, but it is fully glow-in-the-dark, much like the old Aurora model kits of the Munster coach from back in the day, if you remember those. I've yet to try it out in the dark, but once I get my sample, I will be putting myself in a dark room almost immediately. Pulp Fiction. I am not ready to show any designs at this point, but we will be making 7-inch action figures for Pulp Fiction, which I believe is the first full-size action figure for that movie. There were some black figures back in the day, but we will also be making mini-mates for the line as well. So there will be a full assortment of mini-mates and a full assortment of figures based on film. And we're hoping to get to a lot of the characters, including some you might not fully expect. Sin City. We will be making figures based on the first film. Again, these are sculpted by Gene St. Jean. We're starting off with Marv, Hardigan, and Nancy. These will be more posable than previous figures that have been offered, and we will be offering them in color and black and white versions. So I have a close-up here of Hardigan there. Sorry again for my photography. I took them very recently, minutes ago, one might say. Those will be available definitely at specialty. I think we're looking to see if they're going to be at Toys R Us as well. I think we're still figuring out how we're going to be offering the color and the black and white versions, but I will keep everybody posted on social media and on artasylum.com. Excuse me. Star Trek. This is the Excelsior, the NCC 2000 Excelsior, seen in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. We are actually listing it as the Undiscovered Country Excelsior. So we'll have George Takei's dialogue as Captain Sulu. You can see another shot of it here. I think we're still aiming for early next year on this. I'm not sure if it's going to make it out before the new year, but that is the next ship that we are doing. We are also doing a new version of the Bird of Prey from Star Trek IV, which has all new dialogue and sound effects from Star Trek IV, including such classic lines as "Captain, there be whales here," and "Everybody remember where we parked." I will not do impersonations. And you can see there is interchangeable landing gear, as well as, actually in this photo you can see, I've been meaning to have them reshoot this. That is the alternate battery cover taped to the wing, in case anybody was wondering what that was.
Oh.
So that will be interchangeable, and the landing gear will say Bounty on the side. Can I get a shot of that? Yes. And it will also come with a flight base, of course, and I think that one is also going to be early next year. Again, I'm not sure if that'll be up by the new year. After that will be the Battle Damage Enterprise B, which has the Nexus wave damage, and it will have new dialogue and effects from that scene where Captain Kirk is believed killed in Star Trek Generations. Another shot of it. After that, we will hopefully have completed all of the renovations and refit work that we need to do on the Enterprise A, which has not been released since Art Asylum put it out several years ago. So we have repainted it, and we've done some modifications to the electronics, I believe, but we will hopefully have that out in the first half of next year. So it needed a lot of work to bring it up to spec with the rest of the line as it stands currently. So that's why the longer than usual development time, but we will be bringing it back. And we are also developing new classes of ship as well. The work continues. I'm hoping that we'll have something to show by New York Toy Fair for one or both of the ships that we are developing. Captain Picard will be the next Star Trek Select figure, a 7-inch scale figure with the detailed base. We're working out certain details with the figure now. Whether the figure on the base will be removable, but I think we have made the decision to add ball joints to the shoulders, so the Picard's arm will raise up and down, so you have a more natural pose at his side, and the ball joint does also give a wider range of movement to the left arm, which also has a mid-bicep cut, so you can actually strike a fair number of poses with the figure. The fourth figure is being worked on right now. We know who the character is. It will be a next generation figure, and it will not connect to Picard's base, but it will work with Picard's base and his pose, and we may be able to throw some extra parts for both figures into that fourth figure. But as it stands now, I don't think he's going to have too many interchangeable parts like we did for Kirk and Spock. Kirk and Spock, we pretty much blew the doors off going out the gate because we wanted to make those two figures really special. But to continue to do that at the price point that we have select figures at would not be feasible. So that's why you aren't seeing multiple sets of legs for Picard or a full entire board figure or anything like that. It's entirely about cost, and some figures cost more than others, some figures cost less than others. But across the line, we hope to bring that value there, and also to make retroactively make certain figures more exciting with future releases in the line. We're also launching a line of vinyl banks, again similar to the banks we have up in the store for Universal Monsters and Star Wars. Spock will be the first release, followed by Kirk. I do not have a picture of Kirk. I meant to grab some control art for him, because I think it does exist. I think Spock will be coming out again early next year. We just solicited him recently. Our line of Granics, granite art, slate artwork. For desktop display or wall hanging, I believe the first one is out, the Enterprise, or it is imminently due out, and we'll be following that up with, not that silicone tray, Kirk, Captain Kirk, for your desk, so you can remember him always. And we'll also be doing a silicone tray for Star Trek based on Next Generation, so you see the Enterprise D there, and also the Starfleet insignia. Star Wars. We are continuing our vinyl bust bank line. The next two will be Commander Thyre. We recently released Commander Apo, and Commander Cody came out a little while back. Thyre will be the next one, I believe, followed by Cad Bane. This will be our third Clone Wars based bank after Obi-Wan and Anakin. We also have the Darth Vader metal bottle opener. coming out. I believe this one will be out by the end of the year. And Boba Fett will be in spring of next year. Those are both resin prototypes that I just showed. This is what they look like in the booth downstairs, where we have closer to final metal samples. The Walking Dead, our next vinyl bank, sculpted by Eli Livingston, gentleman to my right, is Rick Grimes. And I think this one is on track for release before the end of the year. And we are currently developing the fourth one as we speak. Still trying to pin down exactly what that one will look like. I believe, I think we've picked the character, but I don't think we've fully gotten approvals on to go forward with it yet. We'll also be releasing another metal bottle opener. We recently put out the One-Eyed Zombie bottle opener. This one is the Pet Zombie, Michonne's Pet Zombie bottle opener. And I think this one will be out early next year. Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose, is an independent comic book by Jim Balint. And we are making a plush of the Goblin Cat Puka from that series. Wire posable gauze wings, and the little flying mouse is attached to the paws. And I believe that one is also coming out early this year. Universal Monsters. Our select figures are out now, and the Toys R Us assortment, but the next figures will be, our next release will be our vinyl banks of Bride of Frankenstein and also the Wolfman. We are also going to be releasing shortly after that black and white versions. I believe these are just modified imagery. I don't have final photography, but I think the final product is on display in the display case. They do look slightly different from that. Our third Legacy Series box set will be coming out also this year, I believe sometime in November. And that will have our three figures from last year from the Select and Toys R Us series. Phantom, the Toys R Us version with the violin and the hat, and the Invisible Man and the Metaluna Mutant. The Phantom and Metaluna Mutant, of course, sculpted by Gene St. Jean. And Invisible Man is sculpted by, I think that's Gabriel Marquez. We've been showing the figures for 2014 for a while now, but Son of Frankenstein will be coming out in the fall of next year. I believe that is a select size base that you're seeing there. And the Creature from the Black Lagoon, a new, more posable version with lots of added articulation to differentiate it from our previous release. And those will both come out in the fall, along with another figure that we have developed to go along with them, which is our own original concept Van Helsing. We're hoping to do some interesting things with him in the future, but we're starting off with this guy, and he's got a pretty cool vampire base. And so look for him to come out around the same time as those other figures. Aliens. I'm breaking the alphabetical rule because we don't have anything to show for this either, but I wanted to let you know that we have some cool stuff in the works. Some vehicles and also some other products. Development continues, but it's our electronic vehicle is always a long development process. But since we announced it at your tour, I wanted to give you an update and let you know that development is continuing, and we're also working on some mini-mates for the line. Hopefully we'll have something to show, if not by New York Toy Fair, then by San Diego Comic-Con. If you're interested in more about mini-mates, by the way, we are having a panel tomorrow at 1:30 to cover all the mini-mate products that we work on, which is almost as much as what I covered here, pretty much. It's a lot of stuff. So a lot of cool reveals at that panel as well. So that is everything. Let me check the time. It is 12:38. Actually, I don't know exactly what time I go to, but I think we have time for our Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hands. I have some old promotional posters from Diamond Select that I'll give out to the first, I think, 6 or 8 people who ask questions. And feel free to direct questions to Gene and Eli as well. And I'll do my best to answer them. I'm sorry Chuck Tricera, the director of DST, couldn't be here today, but I will try and determine what he's thinking in cases where that might be necessary. Yes, sir, on the right.
With Van Helsing, have you also considered just doing the Van Helsing from the 30th Dracula?
I'm not sure if that was a character who was available to us through our usual deal with Universal Monsters, with Universal Studios. There may have been likeness rights involved, and sometimes with likeness rights, it's not feasible to pursue them for the figures that we want to make. simply due to cost reasons or restrictions and approvals. And also, I think there are also concerns about sell-through. I realize there's a lot of monster lovers who would love to have that version of Van Helsing. He's never been done, as far as I know, but the fact is these need to be also be sold at Toys R Us to a pretty large audience, and we're making tens of thousands of figures, and there are worries about whether it be tens of thousands of people who would want to buy. And I really do not mean to insult any fans of the movie or any fans of the character by saying it, but who would want to buy a figure of that particular version of Van Helsing? I wish we could make every character from every movie. I wish we could make, Henry Frankenstein. I wish we could make an Igor. I wish we could make a lot of different characters. But I think we've realized that we're getting towards the end of the line of universally recognizable Universal monsters who would be must-owns for the maximum number of collectors. Characters like the Mole Person and even the Metaluna Mutant are not, they're not top-tier monsters, and but we really wanted to do them. And I think we just had to draw the line somewhere. We wanted to go out on a high note, and we didn't want to, offer a set of figures and then not have anybody buy them, and not have any retailers buy them, not just customers. And we don't sell direct to customers, so if the retailers say no, and we're showing figures that people want, it just leads to disappointment all around. So we're trying some new stuff with this homegrown version of Van Helsing, and we'll see if that leads somewhere. Because when you're not dealing with a licensor, you have a lot more freedom to do certain things.
If I could jump in.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Gene would love to talk about this because he's a big Universal Monsters fan and he works on the line.
Yeah, after about a line in, I became involved in it, and we made the decision to expand the articulation. Initially, they were semi-articulated, more of an Aurora model kit with a nod towards articulation. And what we decided to do, since the Munsters was so well received and we were able to get support with Toys R Us, we decided to expand the Monsters line in that way. And we do consider all of the, kind of tertiary characters and stuff. We talked about Colin Clive and Dr. Polidori and, and Bella as Igor and stuff. But like Zach said, if you look at Universal Monsters, look at it like the Justice League. Once you get outside of the big five, and you start getting into Black Lightning and Martian Manhunter and stuff, you kind of run into trouble with sell-through, like you said. So as we got into, we knew as we were getting into Phantom and Mole People and the Hunchback, that I love all those characters, and everyone does, but you get outside of that group, and you start having a problem moving them on the shelves, and that's the line killer. Is that if they have a wave that are a lot of B and C characters, by their expectations, then that pretty much can kill it. So what we started to think about is how could we reinvigorate the line and maybe put our toe in the water with some original ideas, which really no one's doing too much of that right now. And the reason is it's really hard to sell. Guy goes into the store with 20 or 30 bucks, and there's Spider-Man, Freddy Krueger, and supervillain A that he's never seen before. His money's going to go on the big license kind of characters. So it's not that we're thoughtfully excluding these characters because we don't want to do them, we're not even considering them. It's just there's a lot of other factors that weigh into whether the line survives or not. So we're trying to, as much as we can, these guys let me get away with an awful lot as far as expanding and developing the characters, and they're insanely expensive, and they still roll with it. So we're doing the best we can to represent the property, respectfully.
Yes, sir. You're on the aisle.
More of the Mego style figures at all? You did the Star Trek ones.
I think we've started talking to the boys at EMCE about some new retro style figures. I don't think we're necessarily going forward with Universal Monsters because, again, some of the similar problems we've just talked about. But I think there are some new licenses that we're looking at for figures. And I think we'd all love to revisit Star Trek because there's a lot of characters people would like to get that we've actually been shown that experience their own sets of problems in developing them. But I think we're still buddies with the guys at EMCE, and they do fantastic work. And their last wave of Universal Monsters was the best yet, Phantom and the Metaluna Mutant. So we're hoping to do more with them, and we've got some ideas in the fire. I think yesterday we told them to go home and prototype something. So. Yes, over there. Oh, and anybody who asked a question, feel free to come up and get a poster. Yes, in the back.
The 30th anniversary of Ghostbusters coming up. Are you guys be doing like Ghostbusters Select would actually make movie characters, or like a Ghostbusters, like if you were making Bust or anything, or is that just a licensing issue? You get the actual likeness of the characters.
I think the action figures would probably be definitely a licensing issue, since there is someone established doing action figures. I'm not sure if that line is continuing, but I think I don't know if resin is something we've ever looked at, but again, I think somebody actually just showed some resin recently, so that might also be tied up. It's not something we particularly looked at. I don't know if we have plans to continue the statue line beyond the firehouse, but we do have the new bank coming out, the new set of mini-mates, so we are continuing to produce Ghostbusters items, so anything's possible. If those do really well, we might go back and say, look, Ghostbusters is still selling, it's still, even with Ghostbusters 3 in perpetual limbo, it's, they keep drawing us back in. We still would love to do something based on the Ecto one. Again, licensing issues, but we love Ghostbusters and we'd always love to do more products. It's just that what we can do, we feel like we've done a lot of what we have access to. We feel like we've done a lot of what we can do. Our Mini-Mates line, for instance, I think we did every single character that appeared in any of the films. And even a bunch of the cartoon figures as well. We have more cartoon figures, Mini-Mates we developed that we never got around to making. But as far as resin or fully posable action figures, I think, I'll just say Mattel did a pretty great job with their 6-inch action figure line. They made a lot of characters and they all look pretty great. So I don't know if it's something we'd revisit that soon, a 6 or 7-inch scale figure. But resin, if there's something available and we thought it was something that was worth doing, then it's possible. Or maybe we'll just make a really big 2-foot-tall Slimer bank, because that would be pretty cool too. Next question? Yes?
Any plans to do Deep Space Nine toys at any point?
We certainly still have the ability to do Deep Space Nine toys. There are, again, concerns with them. Everybody says that we love the original series stuff, and that's all we do. But when the big movie in the movie theaters has them in their yellow and blue shirts, then it's still the most recognizable Star Trek out there. Next Generation, we also we're moving forward to Next Gen with the Select line, and it's entirely possible. We're trying to focus on iconic characters in the Select line. So you're looking for tertiary characters that we've never made before. It's possible that might not be in the works, but. A character like Janeway, she was the captain of a ship. I mean, that's entirely possible. 7 of 9 is a pretty iconic character. I wouldn't be surprised if we looked at those characters down the road, but I'm not saying they'd be the 5th and 6th select figures in the line. But I know that Chuck is a big fan of Deep Space Nine, a very big fan. So the Defiant keeps coming up and talks about ships we want to do, and I'm sorry, I think I was talking about Voyager when you were talking about Deep Space Nine, but Cisco.
I'm interested in either. It's fine.
I think of Deep Space Nine and Voyager in the same sort of,
right.
There's original series in terms of visibility, and then there's Next Generation, and then there's those two series which are both great, but they're both equally, they're above Enterprise, but they're both equally, they have problems in terms of visibility. But I think the Mini-Mates we put out at Toys R Us, I think the Voyager set that we put out was one of the best sellers. So they're definitely on our list of ones we can do and ones that we would like to do. Select line, we're going to keep going forward and we may see if the sales hold up with Picard and with the 4th figure. Give me a poster. Yes, sir, in the back.
Possibility like something with something like Cisco and even Archer that you put out like the captain set? Have you ever done anything like that?
That's something people have suggested. We've obviously done a bunch of Captain Command Chair figures, and we've recently done some box sets for the Disney store of some of Marvel that were 4-packs. I think to do a box set of that size that included new figures, as opposed to say the Universal Monsters box set we do, which is all repaints. We'd have to have a retailer on board for that, and retailers are a little shy on Star Trek right now, just because it's not really, without a show on the air on television, it's a movie property. And so when the movie's not in the theaters, Star Trek sales do tend to suffer a little bit, and product tends to linger. So we did pretty well with the stuff we put into Toys R Us recently. It's entirely possible some retailer may say, hey, I would like a box set of this, but they just have to be able to meet the minimum, the MOQ, minimum order quantity.
Just as a fan,
yeah?
all the series are on Netflix now, so I mean, I'm not having to go back way to like, cross-purpose that,
if Netflix would like to buy a box set of figures, I would definitely try to make that happen. I'd be curious to know how they do on Netflix. I'd be curious to know numbers on the Blu-ray sales for Next Generation. I haven't looked up those numbers recently, but I'd be curious to see if those are something I could take a look at. But again, that doesn't necessarily translate to merchandise sales, especially not a box set like you're talking about, like a Captain set, which would obviously be an incredibly cool collector piece. But until we have all 4 of those figures tooled and ready in the current scale we're making figures, it's probably infeasible. You know, Archer is a completely different uniform from everybody else. I don't know how much of our old tooling is accessible to us and how much of it is all on the same scale. Because obviously our Next Generation figures were slightly larger than our original series figures. Which is unfortunate, and it does affect some things. But again, I don't know how much of that tooling is still available to us, which also affects it. Yes, sir?
Yes, I have a question. I see that you have Star Wars Clone Wars. Can you do anything from the old Star Wars Clone Wars from 2004?
I don't think they really licensed the original Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars anymore. It's a beautiful series, but I don't think they really do anything with that. It's certainly a question to ask. I don't know if that's something we've ever looked at, and considering it lasted so short, and the new series is completely different in style, and also this new Clone Wars series is going away as well. I mean, that slide would have been a Rebels slide if I had any real artwork from that series to show you, but you know, I think we're talking to them about the next animated series, see what we can do from there. But again, I don't think we've seen anything more than you guys have seen. So, that's Rebels is on our radar. But I think we do have another figure that we want to bank we want to do for Clone Wars. I'm not sure if that's going to come out, but I believe it will. Feel free to come up and get a poster. I have a couple more left. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
One thing I've never seen done with Star Trek outside of like Edith Keller is, you know, Kirk had all those fantastic women that he had from episode to episode. Maybe as a statue line or something.
Statues might be, I don't know. It's a pretty high-end piece, and the development on those is not as high as it has like an articulated plastic action figure, but it's still.
Well,
You'd have to.
Thinking that would be less Toys R Us and more specialty.
Yeah, the difference between the two is your development's a little different in that you can produce a lot lower number run of pieces. An action figure, you're talking thousands or tens of thousands. The statue, you could do like a 1,000-piece run, or sometimes you can get it down to maybe 800 pieces. The problem is that then instead of a $15 to $20 action figure set, you end up with something that's in the $100 to $200 range, depending on how big it is and the scale. And in the past, we've experimented like with the Buffy the Vampire Slayer lines. We tried out a line of Essence of Buffy statues, and they were basically in scale with the action figure line, and with lights and a big base and stuff. But then you're looking at an action figure size statue that's costing you $100 and change. So for the perceived value for the customer, it'd be nice to walk in the comic store and just snag an action figure for $20. Are you really going to pull the trigger on a statue? Or like when you're talking about a line, you might go in and cherry pick the character you really dig, but the other 3 statues, you might not buy a whole line. So again, it's sort of this thing where we're sort of surfing in between these 2 different options. The best one's the action figure. They're accessible to everybody. But the tooling is like, 5 times what we'd have to go through money-wise in terms of producing a statue, and yet the cost is different, So we're weighing so many different things, in addition to the fact that there's certain things we really want to produce. But, if we can't make money on it, or we don't think there's going to be retail support, especially somebody like Toys R Us, then it has to go through a longer spanking mill than something similar.
I don't know how well the 7 of 9 statue was done offhand, the PVC Femme Fatale statue of 7 of 9, but if that did well, I could conceivably see some other Star Trek characters that were maybe more prominent than some of the one-episode appearance characters like Edith Keeler, for instance. Vina is certainly an iconic character. I'd love to see a Vina Femme Fatale. I'd love to see Uhura Femme Fatale. I think that those are perfectly viable options. It's just a question of whether or not we think it's going to sell. And I think 7 of 9 is probably going to be our all-weather on that. But to Paul would be very good. So if you're interested in seeing that, I would definitely, if any of my answers, by the way, or Gene's answers are not answering it for you, or if you want more information, you can always go to artasylum.com and click on Ask DST. And DST Chuck is Chuck Tercera, the director of Diamond Select Toys, who's not able to be here today. But he answers every question that comes in, unless it's a duplicate of a question somebody else has asked recently. So you can always suggest more femme fatales if that's a line you guys like. 7 of 9 I think is in our store now. If you want to go check it out and see what it looks like. But it's a PVC statue, $45, 9 inches tall. Slightly different from a high-end resin statue, which again, if you're talking standalone characters like that, I think you'd have to have an established lineup of characters like, Bowen Design started off with Captain America and Spider-Man before they made the Wrecking Crew. It's just how they organize things. If it was part of a line that was collectible, then I think you might see those tertiary characters. But I think right now we're just hoping to be able to do primary and secondary characters. We'd love for there to be an audience for that. But it's a sad fact that without the TV show on the air, Star Trek fan base is contracting. Those hardcores are still there, but the casual fans are not as diverse in number. Any other questions?
I'm
Yes.
just kind of curious how you guys wound up working in toys. Just curious.
I'll be quick. Eli.
Yeah.
Eli doesn't have a microphone. He sits in the shadows. He's very shy.
Well, I started out when I was working in the world of special makeup effects, and then that got a little slow for me, and so I decided to hone in on my sculpting skills. And as time progressed, I was working for a toy company in Brooklyn for about, say, from '98 to 2005. That's actually how I got in contact with Diamond Select, and it was as shallow as it sounds, it was a good way to pay the bills, but I was also very fond of the properties that I was working on, and I enjoyed the challenge of three-dimensionalizing other artists' illustrations and ideas and whatnot. Plus, I always felt like it was a great way to hone in on my skills and get better at what I do. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, it's
Gene, how about you?
Well, I kind of got into this through kind of a back gate. I studied music my whole life, and I went to college for music and classical piano and stuff. I played in bands and everything, and there was no viable way to really make a living. I taught piano lessons, and I did some score music for commercials, but I was still working like a crappy day job. And then I got into I was completely out of comics for years, all through high school. I was into the band thing. And then I started collecting toys around the time the first Burton Batman movie came out. And I got really back into it heavily. That just gave me a jolt. And I started noodling around with some custom work on some old Kenner Superpowers and things. And then I got my first job at a doll studio in upstate New York, where we did a lot of Mattel dolls and collectible stuff, and then we would get in some action figure stuff, and my boss would give it to me because she wasn't into it. And after being there for about 5 years, mainly running their mold shop, I got a job at McFarlane. And after about 1.5 years, I ended up running their sculpture department for the next, 6.5 years. And then I was getting kind of played out as they started to get rid of all their really cool licenses and going more into sports. I was starting to get kind of bored, so I had kind of like people in the industry were starting to offer me positions at different companies, and that's when I started talking to like Diamond and DC Direct and things, and I started doing some work for NECA. And after that, once I went freelance, and I hooked in with these guys, and they basically right out of the gate, they gave me Stargate, Stargate Atlantis, Battlestar Galactica. I was handling all these major licenses for them, plus they would let me cherry pick what I wanted out of their Marvel Select lines. And I was doing some milestone statues, and then I locked in with DC Direct. So it steamrolled, and it became this whole career thing, which I really have not, I really haven't had to ever chase anything down, knock on wood. it's just kind of been so easy to fall through. And I like the work too. I work out of my house. I don't have to commute anywhere, so I talk to people on the phone once in a while. And these guys are great. Like, we put together an idea for a line, and then they leave me the hell alone to do it, you know? Most companies, they're on my back all the time, and these guys are like, look, you know, here's what we're looking for. If you can cover these things, then you can kind of expand on it and do something really cool. Like, Universal Monsters and the Marvel stuff that we've done are perfect examples. They're like, here's the character, show us what you would like to see done. And, you know, it's perfect for me because I'm totally geeked on all this stuff. So I can think in terms of, well, this is what I'd really like to see happen. So that's kind of it. I'm basically immersed in it, and I just took a right angle turn from being a professional musician into this stuff and kind of never looked back. And I've been doing it about 20 years at this point.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What line that you've worked on has been like the most enjoyed or most proud of as it was completed?
Up to this point, for me, it's been Universal Monsters. I've been into, since I was a little kid, I was really into monsters and superheroes, especially those, and like even the darker stuff like the Hammer. But when I got a chance to get my hooks into Universal Monsters, essentially they had a few guys working on it, but once I started into it, I basically kind of grabbed the whole line as soon as I could. So up to this point, now my big passion is that Batman line, because that was the first thing I ever saw when that show came on TV. I was about 2 or 3. And I was completely obsessed with Batman from that point. So when these guys, they were telling me at Toy Fair in February, I was like, well, yeah, we got this license and that license. And I was like, I want to do the Batman stuff. I said, I don't care whatever else you have, I'll do anything you want, but I want to be in on that Batman line. So right now, that's my current, that's my current baby, is the Batman stuff.
Eli?
Well, it all started when I was asked to do the Marvel milestones about 10 years ago. It was pretty fascinating doing Green Goblin, also doing a lot of the Spider-Man rogues. What was kind of cool about it is that their costumes were kind of bland as illustrations, but it did give me the chance. It actually did give me the creative liberties to make the costumes look more intense and the character developments as well. Just recently, with The Walking Dead, I've enjoyed doing that. It's basically a world full of zombies and psychotic human beings. The Rick Grimes bust was enjoyed doing. What else? I would say that pretty much sums it up. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it was quite a bit in the creative and development field. And plus, seeing one's work in a comic book store on display does boost one's ego quite a bit.
How many of those Marvel milestone statues do you think you did?
I think I did about 5 of them.
Okay. Any other questions?